I knew it had been cut.
Imagine having the thrill of making a trek up the Sulia Grand, a 20,814-foot-high mountain. Then while on the way down, everything goes wrong. You're left hanging 50 feet above a crevasse. You have no clue how far down it goes, and you're freezing to death. Then your partner, who thinks you're dead, cuts the line, sending you plummeting into the crevasse. You never know what could happen while climbing a mountain, so you've got to be ready for anything. After reaching the summit, Joe Simpson and Simon Yates took some time to take in the view of the Peruvian horizon. Then they began the descent back down the mountain. By the time they had started the descent down the mountain, the sun had already been settling and a storm was arriving. The blinding snow left Joe and Simon lost. Joe saw a spot of moonlight and began climbing towards it to get an idea of where he was, but he ended up walking on an overhanging snowdrift. The snow gave out and Joe plummeted 20 feet down solid ice. Upon hitting the ice, Joe's leg was severely broken. Joe's fall caused Simon to be jerked to the ground and dragged to the edge. He was able to see Joe and climb down to him. Joe knew that he could not get down the mountain on a broken leg and thought that Simon was going to leave him. But instead, Simon tied 2 ropes together and decided he would try lowering Joe down the mountain. During the descent, Joe's leg would occasionally get caught up and would send splintering pain through his body. Simon knew Joe was in immense pain, but he also knew that if he did not continue, that he would certainly die. At some point of the tortuous descent, Joe began to slide. He kept sliding without any control of direction and speed and was flung over the ledge. Joe fell 20 feet before the rope went tight and caught him jerking violently to a halt. Simon thought Joe had fallen to his death because Joe was not giving the signal of tugs on the line. The rope was too tight. Joe could not climb the rope or drop from the rope because there was a huge crevasse right below him, so he just laid, suspended in air, waiting to die. The weight of Joe on the rope was causing Simon to lose ground. He was slowly sliding towards the edge. Simon had held the rope for as long as he could, both facing death, until he pulled a pocket knife out of his pocket and cut the rope, connecting them. After Simon cut the rope, Joe fell 150 feet to a small ledge into a crevasse. Joe had just barely survived the fall. He landed 3 feet. If he landed 3 feet to the left, he would have fell 300 feet and died. He sat there on a tiny ledge in excruciating pain from the bone in his calf grinding against the bone in his thigh. With no water and little food, he thought of ways to get out of the crevasse. Joe started pulling the rope that had once connected him and Simon. He thought during the fall he had pulled Simon down also, but when the end of the rope came falling to his feet, he picked it up and saw that it had been cut. He was happy that the rope had been cut because he was alive, and so was Simon. Joe says he would have done the same thing. Knowing he could not last forever, he made a huge gamble. He used 300-foot rope to lower himself into the darkness of the crevasse. He didn't get to the bottom, he'd certainly die, but he reached the ground and fell asleep. The next morning he was able to see a beam of light coming from the small hole in the distance. He crawled up the slippery ice slope towards the light and broke out of the crevasse back into the light of day. Escaping the crevasse sparked hope in Joe, that he thought he could get down the mountain and be with his friends. Once Joe finally got out of the maze of crevasses, he came to a field of rocks and boulders. Joe had to cross a huge rock art. He could no longer crawl, so he ditched his backpack and wrapped his leg in a mattress and tried to walk on the rocks. That was a complete failure. He set a goal to be at the lake by nightfall. While on the way he found a little flow of water, he sat for 20 minutes drinking. Then he crawled and crawled into human feces, realizing it was him and Simon's from their base camp. He knew he was close by. He lay there saddened as his helpless cries were unanswered. He yelled and yelled for help. Simon was in his tent when the person who watched the tent woke up saying he was hearing yells for help. They both listened, then dashed out of the tent looking for Joe. When they found him, they took him back to the tent. Joe told Simon, "I would have done the same," but he was angry when he discovered that as symbolic burial, Simon had burned his clothes. Joe ended up having no warm clothes. Mountain climbing is one of the most thrilling and glorious sports in the world. Joe Simpson is an inspiration and a reminder to people to enjoy life and what they have. Because the only thing that kept Joe going was the thought of hanging on to life and joy. Even when you follow the correct procedures and all have the needed equipment to climb a mountain, you're not guaranteed a safe climb. This is shown in into thin air. It was a cold night up at Camp 4, 26,300 feet. Mount Everest was in the middle of a blizzard that had several climbers and their guides from multiple teams stuck in a frigid night at various points on the 6-hour climb. When all hope was lost about survival of these climbers, a nearly blind, freezing man hobbled into the camp, despite the heavy sleet coming straight at him. 2 guides were at his side, Pete Athens and Todd Burleson, dragging him back through the heavy snow, but he was alive. This man was Beck Weathers. What Beck Weathers and many others realized that day would stick with them for the rest of their lives. Mountain climbing is one of the most dangerous things to do on Earth, and Mount Everest is no exception. Some say that it's all required of summiting Mount Everest is just going up to 29,035 feet and coming down 29,035 feet. But anyone that has even seen a picture of the tallest mountain on Earth knows it's not the truth. First is the climb from base camp at 17,300 to Camp 2 at 21,000. The stretch involves walking across the Khumbu Icefall, which mountain expert Gordon Jano calls an area of car-sized blocks that you must cross with a series of ropes and ladders. Sherpa, local Nepali mountain guides, place the ropes and ladders strategically through the icefall, making this traverse possible. But it is also the first step of a journey that you'll have to accomplish 3 more times over the course of a 2-month process of climbing the tallest mountain in the world. After you reach Camp 2 for the second time, you start to climb to Camp 3 at 24,000. This is the easiest leg of the whole experience, as it consists of hiking up a sheet of ice. Camp 3 is a very primitive camp within its borders, and tents are strewn atop a semi-vertical glacier, looking into a deep cavern in the bowels of the mountain. Once the goal is reached, a night is spent at camp there, and then the climbers begin to descend past base camp all the way to the town of Tangboche, where you rest until you can make a summit attempt. Jano states that once the weather's clear enough, climbers go back to base camp, rest for 2 days, and then climb to Camp 2. Once the climbers sleep at 2, they climb to 3, don their oxygen masks, and sleep there. They begin the ascent to 26,300 feet at Camp 4. One day there and midnight the next day, climbers start the 12-hour climb to the summit. It's an arduous climb. They must overcome the Hillary Step, a virtual sheet of ice. After the Hillary Step, then on to the South Summit. From the South Summit, it's climbing with ropes up to a peak which clocks the highest reachable landscape, 29,035 feet. Mount Everest actually grows 0.1578 inches per year. People usually spend 5 to 10 minutes on the top and then begin their descent to Camp 4. Everyone knows that climbs of Mount Everest are difficult. They wish it was easy, that there were no dangers, and that nothing can go wrong. Accidents happen, as in the case of an avalanche last year which killed 16 people and another avalanche this year. If climbers are to ascend too quickly, they might get HAPE, high-altitude pulmonary edema, or the deadlier HACE, high-altitude cerebral edema. HAPE is a disease that results from getting liquids in the lungs, while HACE is where fluid starts to build in the brain. HAPE and HACE can be seen with a cough, sometimes producing a white or pink frothy sputum. A very deadly disease. Many other symptoms are associated with the disease. There is only one cure: rapid descent. A much less common and more dangerous event is the avalanche. Avalanches produce a wide range of effects, some only injuring a few, while others leave many dead and many more injured. There's also a number of things that can cause an avalanche, such as overloading temperature, slope angle, snowpack conditions, and vibration. There are many safety measures in place, though, like barrels scattered over the mountain for survival gear, which have ropes, pickets, ice screws, down suits, and many other items. People fall in the mountains while climbing all the time, but these falls are rarely over 100 feet, and only that far when maneuvering over a crevasse. Falling into a crevasse can be common while climbing, but that doesn't mean it happens regularly or that the climber falls fatally. When the fall begins, climbers stick their ice axe into the side of the mountain and prevent their fall. This is called self-arrest. Every climber that sets foot on Mount Everest adds waste to a once beautiful mountain, so we always must make sure the mountain is as clean and pristine as possible, and mountain climbers go through a lot of tasks to make sure the mountain is left there. Mountain climbers must also be prepared. For example, somebody climbing Mount Everest might have to climb Mount Rainier in Washington State or Denali in Alaska before they can go up the mountain, as well as complete a very arduous training course. When Beck Weathers hobbled into camp that day, everyone was shocked, from the few people who were outside during the blizzard to the many huddled up inside their tents. Now the realization had set that what Mount Everest can do to a person and how it can break them.
It's changed over the years. In the first time I went in the early 80s, there was no communications with the outside world. It was very quiet and small, and now Everest is very popular nowadays. And with the modern communications, we have instant texting from base camp, and we communicate with our families at all times, and the world is watching much more than